You've probably heard that wind turbine technician is the single fastest growing job in America. That part is true. What that headline conveniently leaves out is everything else. The median technician climbing those towers makes $62,580 a year. Not bad. Not the payday the fastest growing job headline implies either. And right now, this industry is caught in the middle of a political fight that could reshape half its job market. So is this actually one of the smartest trades to enter in 2026? Or is the growth number selling you something the paycheck can't back up? Let's do the actual math. Here's the pitch you've probably seen on a trade school ad or a YouTube short. No 4-year degree. Less than a year of training. A job that gets you outside, working with your hands, climbing 300 feet into the sky, and doing it for a paycheck that beats most college graduates straight out of school. That's the dream version. Here's what's actually true. Wind turbine service technicians install, inspect, and repair the mechanical, electrical, and hydraulic systems inside those towers. The median pay is $62,580 a year, which is genuinely above the $49,500 median for every job in the US economy. But the bottom 10% of technicians make $49,110 a year, barely above that national average. The top 10% clear $88,090. That's a real gap, and where you land on it depends on things nobody puts in the recruitment video. There's also a detail buried in that growth number. Wind turbine technician is projected to grow 50% between 2024 and 2034. 50% sounds enormous. It's 50% of a very small occupation. There were only about 13,600 of these jobs in the entire country in 2024. So, high growth rate, small total headcount, a real pay gap between entry and experienced techs, and a federal policy fight hanging over part of the industry. Let's find out what it actually costs to get in the door. Picture a 19-year-old high school graduate in rural Iowa. She doesn't want 4 years of student debt. She wants to be working and earning within a year. Wind tech training is built for exactly that person. Here's what she's actually signing up for. Most technicians enter through a certificate or associate degree program at a technical school or community college. These run anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. The price tag depends enormously on where you go. Public community college tuition for these programs typically runs from $2,145 to $5,800 a year, with a median around $3,170 based on federal tuition data from 11 schools. Some state schools land even lower. One Kansas program charges just $3,390 a year for base tuition and fees. Private and accelerated programs cost dramatically more. A 24-week wind turbine technician academy at one Michigan community college runs about $15,000 for the full program. A 40-week hybrid program combining online coursework with an in-person boot camp runs closer to $23,400. And that figure includes housing during the hands-on portion. Here's the twist nobody puts in the recruitment brochure. None of that tuition includes the safety certifications employers actually require before you can climb a real turbine. The industry standard is called GWO Basic Safety Training, 4 modules covering working at heights, first aid, manual handling, and fire awareness. A 4-day course typically costs somewhere between $1,000 and $1,300 per person. And that certificate only lasts 2 years before you need a refresher course to stay employable. Add it up. Our Iowa student is looking at anywhere from about $4,000 to $25,000 before she earns her first paycheck, depending entirely on which path she picks. That's a genuinely wide range for the same job title, and the school she picks determines almost everything about her first 2 years of income. Let's see what that income actually looks like. Start with the bottom rung. A brand new technician, fresh out of a certificate program, typically starts somewhere between $18 and $22 an hour, according to placement data from one Illinois community college's wind program. Call it roughly $37,000 to $46,000 a year before overtime. National entry-level figures land in a similar range, with the lowest 10% of all wind techs earning around $49,110 a year. Now here's the twist nobody puts in the recruitment brochure. That number climbs fast if you stay in the field. After just 1 to 2 years of hands-on experience, hourly pay at that same Illinois program jumps to $25 to $34 an hour, roughly $52,000 to $70,000 a year. That's one of the steepest early career pay jumps of any trade that doesn't require a 4-year degree. The national median for the entire occupation, blending rookies with veterans, sits at $62,580 a year. Push into the top 10% of the field, and you're looking at $88,090 or more. Geography matters here too. Texas has, by far, the largest number of wind tech jobs in the country, followed by Iowa, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Illinois, the states sitting inside America's wind corridor. More installed turbines means more maintenance contracts, which means more openings. Though wages in those high-volume states don't always outpace smaller markets, cost of living and local demand shift the math state by state. Then there's the piece most entry-level techs don't factor in at all: how you're paid to move. Picture a 40-year-old lead technician who spent a decade servicing onshore turbines across Iowa before transferring to an offshore rotation off the New England coast. Offshore work typically runs on 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off schedules. Base pay for lead and specialized roles routinely pushes past $100,000 once you add offshore premiums, overtime, and per diem. That per diem detail matters more than people expect. Published wage figures almost always reflect base pay only. Overtime, travel assignments, and daily per diem for technicians working away from home can meaningfully increase what actually lands in the bank account each year. So the real income ladder looks like this: roughly $40,000 to $50,000 in year one, climbing to the low $60,000 at the national median, with experienced, specialized, and offshore technicians clearing $90,000 to $100,000 plus once travel pay and per diem get factored in. That's a genuinely strong ladder for a job that doesn't require a bachelor's degree. But climbing it comes with costs that never show up on a pay stub. Here's where the math gets uncomfortable. Start with recertification. That GWO safety card you paid $1,000 plus for during training, it expires every 2 years, and you pay for the refresher course yourself or negotiate it into your contract. Miss the renewal window, and you're not climbing a tower until you retake it. Then there's the employment structure itself. About 17% of wind turbine technicians are self-employed, working as independent contractors rather than staff employees. That's a meaningfully large slice of the field. Self-employed and 1,099 contractors handle their own quarterly tax payments, and they typically don't get employer-subsidized health insurance, retirement contributions, or paid time off. All costs a W-2 technician at a utility company gets bundled in automatically. Picture a 29-year-old travel technician who spends 3 weeks out of every month on the road, moving between wind farms across 4 different states. The per diem and overtime pad the paycheck significantly. What it costs is missed birthdays, an apartment sitting empty most of the month, and a body that has to recover fast enough to climb another 250-foot tower the following Monday. That physical toll is not exaggerated for the camera. The Bureau of Labor Statistics itself notes that wind farm technicians experience one of the higher rates of work-related injury of any occupation. Technicians climb fixed ladders inside towers that now regularly exceed 200 feet, wearing a fall protection harness while carrying tools, then work inside the cramped nacelle at the top before rappelling down the blade itself for repairs. There's one more detail that changes this whole picture. Extreme weather is part of the job description, not an exception to it. Techs work outdoors on remote farms in summer heat and winter cold alike, and heat stress alone has been linked to a measurable rise in on-the-job injury risk during heat waves. Add gear replacement, travel wear on a personal vehicle if you're not issued a company truck, and the simple fact that a torn harness or a busted set of cold weather gear comes out of your own pocket on many contractor jobs. And the hidden cost column starts to look almost as long as the paycheck column. None of this shows up in a job posting. All of it shows up in year 3, when the novelty of climbing a turbine has worn off and the toll on your knees and your relationships hasn't. So can this job actually grow past a technician's salary? That's where it gets interesting. Every trade eventually asks the same question. Is there a ceiling, or can this become something bigger than an hourly wage? For wind techs, the answer is yes, and there are 2 very different roads to get there. The first road is the corporate ladder. A new technician typically progresses from junior tech to full technician to senior technician, then to lead technician overseeing a crew at a single site. From lead technician, the next step is often site manager or wind farm manager, coordinating maintenance schedules and safety compliance across an entire installation. Beyond that sits regional operations management, and for technicians willing to go back for an engineering or project management credential, a path into full project leadership on new wind farm construction. The second road is the one that echoes the truck driver to fleet owner path from the trucking world. Picture a technician turned contractor in Oklahoma who spent 8 years learning turbine systems inside and out before starting his own two-person blade repair company. Blade damage repair is specialized, dangerous, rope access work, and it's billed separately from routine maintenance contracts. A single blade replacement can cost a wind farm operator $300,000, and a full turbine overhaul can run as high as $5 million. Contractors who can do that specialized work, and who can staff a small crew to do it reliably, are bidding on a genuinely large maintenance budget. That's the real ceiling in this trade. Not a bigger paycheck from the same employer, but ownership of the maintenance contract itself. A 2- or 3-person independent servicing company, contracting directly to wind farm operators or turbine manufacturers, can out-earn even a top-tier staff lead technician, assuming that owner can land the contracts and keep a small crew certified, insured, and busy. But building that business runs headfirst into the same physical and logistical demands we just covered, times 3 or 4 employees instead of 1. And it runs into something even bigger. A wind farm's willingness to keep spending on maintenance depends on whether the wind industry itself keeps growing. Right now, that's not guaranteed everywhere. Now, the part that rarely makes it into the pitch. Start with the physical risk because it's real and it's specific to this job. Falls are the leading cause of fatality across the renewable energy sector, accounting for roughly 80% of deaths in the industry between 2012 and 2016, according to one workplace safety analysis of the field. Confined space work inside the nacelle and rope access blade, repair add mechanical and electrical hazards on top of the height risk. Then there's automation. And the honest answer is that it's changing the job, not eliminating it. Drone and robotic inspection systems can now scan turbine blades for cracks and erosion in a fraction of the time a rope access climb takes, and companies are marketing these systems specifically to cut down on human fall exposure during routine inspections. But someone still has to climb the tower to actually fix what the drone finds. Inspection is being automated. Repair largely is not, at least not yet. The bigger wildcard is policy, not robots. In January 2025, a federal executive order paused new wind energy permitting on federal lands and waters. Since then, tariffs of 50% have been placed on imported turbine components, and a federal budget package has moved up the expiration of clean energy tax credits to July 2026. The impact has landed hardest on offshore wind specifically, with tens of billions of dollars in planned offshore projects delayed or canceled. Onshore wind, which makes up the large majority of this occupation, has weathered this better. It remains one of the cheapest sources of new electricity generation in the country, and BLS's 50% growth projection for the occupation as a whole was published after this policy shift began. But offshore-specific roles and the manufacturing jobs that feed them are facing real near-term uncertainty tied directly to federal policy, not market demand. That's a risk factor no other version of this video series has to deal with quite like this one does. So, was it worth it? Line it up against the neighboring trades. Electricians post a median wage of $62,350 a year. HVAC technicians sit at $59,810. Solar photovoltaic installers, wind's closest clean energy cousin, come in lower at $51,860. Wind turbine technicians, $62,580 median lands right in the middle of that pack. The training cost is often lower than an electrician's multi-year apprenticeship, and the growth outlook beats every trade on this list. What you're actually buying with this career isn't a huge salary ceiling on paper. It's the fastest growth rate of any occupation the government tracks, a lower upfront cost than most skilled trades, and a real ownership path if you're willing to build a servicing business instead of staying a W-2 employee. What it costs you is real physical risk, heavy travel, and a policy environment that's currently rewriting the rules for part of the industry in real time. For the physically fearless, mechanically minded person who doesn't want 4 years of student debt, the math checks out. For someone chasing a guaranteed, steadily climbing paycheck with no asterisks, this trade currently comes with one. If you're weighing this trade against another one, drop the comparison in the comments. I'll pull the numbers for it. Subscribe for the next breakdown in this series.